so long, but we're here. And guess what? It's still season 2, baby. Season 2, episode 13. On the turn.
I'm the Bark.
And we're going to be here a long time. Welcome back, everybody, to Turn Bark Time. So happy that we could join you. Took a little hiatus. Barker, you want to tell everybody what you've been doing?
I just got done coaching COVID football. So my first year of coaching high school football as a head football coach happened during COVID. So all the stress of normal football plus all of the wonderful responsibility that comes with making sure that nobody catches COVID on your team and temperature checks and all that fun stuff and sanitizing, and masking.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, free joke for you. Right. Oh. Middle Eastern city that handled the pandemic the best?
Mascot?
Damascus.
Oh, Damascus. Oh, there you go. Mine was too much.
Anyway.
Love it.
We're back.
Love it. So we are back. We are still in season 2. Every school year is going to make up a season. So starting off lighthearted topics, something fun, something Barker sent me this text, and I literally jumped for joy. You can ask my fiance about how we're going to talk today about our favorite video games of all time. And we're not saying these are the best games of all time. We are talking about our own personal favorites. So please don't come at me when I tell you the name of my games and you're like, those are terrible. I'm like, yes, I'm aware, but I still like to play them. So we're going to start with Barker because age before beauty.
Yeah. Again, a very important distinction that we're listing these based on our own personal enjoyment, and we're not saying that these are works of art or masterpieces. One of mine is like it's seen and thought of very highly in other circles, but my first one is not. So I'm going to start with the first gaming system that was in our house. It was a Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES, right? The one that you took the cartridge out and you blew on it, which they're like, there's no scientific proof that makes it work better, but it always did.
Yep.
Don't science me with that. My first game is Base Wars. So if you take baseball on the NES, which was terrible, and then you mix it with a fighting game with robots, what Base Wars is. It's robots that play baseball. And if you want to try and like run to, you hit a double and you go, I want to run to third anyways. And the ball gets there, instead of you getting tagged out, you get to fight. It's a one-on-one battle, and you fight. And you can either win the game by playing 9 innings and scoring more runs, the old-fashioned way, or you can do it the 24th century way, where you pull out your laser sword or your, laser gun, and you shoot the other person or stab them until they're dead. Take your base, or you blow up 3 of the other robots. And you can play a season, which I think was only less than 10 games. And you could upgrade their shoulder, you could upgrade their arms so they threw faster, you could buy them weapons. There was cyborgs who had legs, there were tank bots that had tank bodies, cycle bots, which were, like little unicycle dudes, and then fly bots. And so they each had their unique, B button attack. 'Cause this is a Nintendo, A and B. Yeah. So you either punched or you had your secondary attacks. So the cyborgs would kick, tank bots would like shoulder charge. The cycle bots would flip, and then the fly bots could hover, and then you'd like smash people on the head. Again, not a great game. I think it is rated as like a D or C plus game at best. But if I had to say, if I was going to grab an old NES, what's the first thing I'm going to buy and play an entire season of is Base Wars. And don't play as Boston, because Boston was all cyborgs, and cyborgs are terrible.
That's good.
So that's my first pick. My first favorite game for the NES, Base Wars by Konami. Tried to get my brother has a friend who worked for Nintendo for a while, and I was like, get them to reboot Base Wars. Never happened.
Never happened. I love that. That's such a fun game. So my first system in our house was actually a Super Nintendo, and it was the only one my mom could play because it was 2D images, and it wouldn't make her motion sick if she would play but when she'd play 3D image games, we couldn't. And there were some fun ones on that. But my first game, my game that I literally could not put down was Ken Griffey Jr. presents Major League Baseball. and it was my all-time favorite thing. Literally, he would sit there and you would turn the game on and be like, "Hi, this is Ken Griffey Jr. Let's play Major League Baseball." And I go, "Call me, Junior." So I loved it. I literally, in the past couple of months, I may or may not have bought a Nintendo 64 and 4 controllers and rebought that game. And I'm now currently playing as the Montreal Expos, and I'm 10-1 going into the season, where my starting pitcher has the second in the league in stolen bases because he steals every time. I love it. But it was one of those games where it was so much fun. It's like Barker said, like that the Super Nintendo. I had Ken Griffey Jr. Baseball for that, and it was okay. Like it was one of those good games. But this is the first time you had like a 3D image, and you had the big yellow ring for like Ken Griffey. It was like Ken Griffey, Paul Molitor, Frank Thomas, Jeff Bagwell had one. Who else? Because I always used to try and trade for those guys to get them on my team. Mike Piazza had one. But it was super fun to play. And I was telling Barker this before the show. I literally had an hour to play it on weeknights and 2 hours on the weekends, because I would sit there and play it. And my setup was awesome because I could like see the TV for Saturday morning cartoons and play Ken Griffey Jr. Baseball. And so it was perfect. So I'd sit there and play, and I'd get through seasons. I even took it to college and would play it in college with two of my friends, Jake Alexander and Eric Sun. Shout out to them. They probably don't watch this, but they would play with me in my dorm room. It was so much fun. So Ken Griffey Jr. Baseball, or Ken Griffey Jr. presents Major League Baseball, Nintendo 64. Still play it to this day. Probably all-time favorite game, and still a high contender. Graphics absolutely atrocious. Nobody has a face in the game. Like they have faces, but their noses are like chiseled like robots, or not robots, but like Mount Rushmore. Like you can't see any of their eyes or anything like that. And there's only like 4 different batting stances your players have. So super fun though. That was definitely my all-time favorite Nintendo 64 game. Would play that religiously. And I know there's gonna be tons of people out there chirping, "What about Smash Bros?" Yes, Smash Bros is an all-time fantastic game. And guess what? I also own Smash Bros. So
I just remember that. That's like one of the few times where a Seattle Mariner was the cover athlete.
Yeah.
For a baseball game.
Yep. I think it's the only time.
Yeah, I don't know if Ichiro ever made it. That would be the only other person I could think that maybe stood a chance. But he was never a home run hitter, and that's who always was on the front.
Yeah. It was always the big name guys. So
my second game is actually, I'm gonna cheat and do a 2-for-1.
Yeah.
So I'm going to combine the Romance of the Three Kingdoms games with Dynasty Warriors because they're all based on the same period of Chinese history. They're Japanese-made games from Koei about a 14th century novel, which I own. It's 4 or like 8 books. I don't know. I've never finished the dang thing, but it's a huge set of books about the 3rd century Chinese history. It's part history, part myth, part legend, about kind of a period of civil war in Chinese history from a Japanese game designer, because that makes sense. But anyway, they just released, we started playing Romance of the Three Kingdoms 4, Wall of Fire. And they just released for the Switch 14. So they've been making Romance of the Three Kingdoms games as long as I've been alive. The first one came out in 85.
Holy snap.
So yeah, this franchise has staying power. So essentially what you do is you either play as one of the 3 main factions, either the Wei, the Shu, or the Wu. So the Wei were blue, the Shu are green, and the Wu are red. And then when you're playing Romance, it's a turn-based strategy game. So essentially kind of like Risk, but we played it on a PlayStation at my buddy Pat's, down in the man cave in the basement. Whoop, whoop. Lots of Dr. Pepper and pizza and running away from Lobo, who was the most badass general of the time period, who was he was not part of any of the 3 main factions. Looked like a butterfly, but he would mess you up in like no time flat. We would do that. And then Dynasty Warriors is the same characters, but instead of being a turn-based strategy game, it's hack and slash, where you just run through and kill like a bajillion bad guys every level and try and kill enemy generals. And there's been 9 of them. And I mean, we literally just played Dynasty Warriors 2, and then we played 3, and then we played 4, and then which it went from the PlayStation to I actually own Dynasty Warriors 9 for my Xbox One that I just bought this summer. And it actually, you know, motivated me to sit there and learn about, you know, Chinese history. And I'm sitting here going like, oh, you know, the guy's name, we would call him Cao. Cat was, we thought it was Cao, but it's pronounced more like Sao. It's like a TSO, you know. But you know, English people don't speak other languages so good, especially when they don't use the same alphabet. But dude, just hours of fun. Just really, when you play like Romance of Three Kingdoms, we started playing it in high school, and it was turn-based strategy. Maybe we were just the biggest nerds wherever. But, and then Dynasty Warriors were the complete opposite. It's just button mashing fun. You're just like mashing buttons over and over again. The skins of the characters change. Your moveset changes a little bit based on whether you're Liu Bei or Sun Jian or Cao, you know, Cao, whoever you are. God, but like I said, like I own Dynasty Warriors 9. We started playing Dynasty Warriors 2, which is odd because that came out in the year 2000, and now we're in 2020, and they're only on 9. And Romance started in 85 and is only on 14 over a much longer time period. But there was bigger gaps in between. But gosh, and then even Nintendo ripped it off and painted it with Zelda characters and called it Hyrule Warriors or something like that. But essentially the gameplay mechanic, like they literally, when they're advertising it, it's like the Zelda version of Dynasty Warriors. Because like if you don't know who the Dynasty Warriors, like you think about it, like growing up, like how many people are gonna be like, frick, dude, like do you know who like Liu Bei is and Zhang Fei? And like people are like, no, who's that? But like you're like, oh, it's Link and you know Princess Zelda. Like, oh yeah, I can play that. Yeah. But they essentially just stole the same game style from this established gaming franchise. You know what I mean? And just like, whoop, we're going to paint it with the Nintendo magic. Yeah. And people are like, oh, this is great. And I'm like, dude, this is not nearly anything as good as like Dynasty Warriors 4, man.
Yeah, God. Have you been around for Dynasty Warriors 4? That's awesome. So speaking of playing video games with our friends and stuff like that, my next game goes out on the original Xbox. Yeah, original Xbox, I think. Maybe it was Xbox 360. Is it 360? I think it was 360. Yeah, it was original Xbox. 2004, Halo 2 came out. And I had played the original Halo game, and we played the campaign, and we played. But Halo 2 is tied to my high school years. And I know that, like, what you see on TV and movies of, like, what high schoolers do, it's not what my friends and I did. We're talking, like, Saturday night, we'd buy a cube of Mountain Dew and like have pizza, and we'd have a poker party, and then we would just system link those Xboxes together, the original Xbox, and you'd have it running, and so you'd have all these different TVs, and everyone's playing, and it was back when screen peeking was a problem, where you'd be looking at the other dude's screen to get him and just cheat. Oh man, we played that for hours. But I used to love that game just for the fact that like they introduced the energy swords, which was huge. You could dual wield weapons. And I mean, who didn't play Swords and Rockets? Like, that was the most fun game. Your buddy would be lunging at you with a sword, and you'd be like, rocket in the ground, you're gone. Oh, man, we had such good times on that. And that's like, all my high school buddies, we used to play that. Because we'd play poker, and then we all know how Texas Hold'em goes. Like, everybody's in it, like, at the beginning, and then all of a sudden, they're no longer in it. So you're like, well, what are you going to do? And so we would just have these massive system link games of Halo 2 and just play and play and play. And we loved that game. And I played it in college a little bit just for fun. Like when people would come back in, you try and play co-op campaigns and different like that. But man, that was, and I know they're on, I don't even know what Halo they're on now. They have a bunch of new Halos, and they're coming out with a new one, or they came out with a new one. But man, Halo 2, that was my jam. Wasn't my jelly. Was definitely my jam, though.
All right. This is I can't go through favorite sports games without having a sports entry. And this is the like probably the least surprising pick of any pick of all.
Yes.
Like this was for the 360. It is the epitome of college sports video games. In my opinion, it's the epitome of football video games, period.
Wow.
Madden. Blech. I hate Madden. I've only started playing Madden because I got rid of my 360. And the biggest thing when I got rid of I gifted my 360 to a young man somewhere in Quincy, put it on Facebook for free. And it was like literally like, this is one of the most treasured games of all time. Be kind.
Yep.
NCAA College Football 14. It's the last one that was ever made before they started suing the NCAA for using their likeness, but not their names. It just had their number, but they looked like who the player would be, and they were the same height and had the same playing style. It sells right now on Amazon for $389 a copy. GameStop has it for $70 on their website, but Amazon has it at $389 from EA Sports. You got to choose between the 126 college football teams that were D1 at the time. It had a deep recruiting system, custom conferences. You could apply for a different coaching job. You could upgrade your coach. You could run the triple option. You could run the Oregon spread, which was very much in the vogue at the time. The only thing that it's missing from the modern game of football is the RPO, because it didn't really exist back then. My favorite thing to do would be take the worst team in the game statistically. I'm talking like, who would it have been? Like Georgia State or Texas State, one of those terrible Sun Belt teams, and essentially turn them into a national powerhouse and go own Texas, right? Or take Eastern Michigan into the big, what would it be, the Big 12, right? Yeah, Big 10 is the one that has 12, the big, right? Hold on, Big 12.
South. Big 12's in Texas. And
Big 10, I want the Big 10.
10, yeah.
I'd take Eastern Michigan to the Big 10 and go whoop up on like Ohio State. I played it so much that I knew what the computer, like I would legit have scouting reports in my brain going, I'm playing Oregon. If I try and sit back, they're going to blitz all game. I just got to run screens, and I can kill them with screens as Wazoo, even though they were way better than Wazoo was in that version. You know, I mean, it's crazy to think that like I played it so much that like I knew like this is how you beat Oregon. This is the formula for beating Oregon. This is the defense you run. And like I would play it on Heisman.
Yep,
like,
the hardest one.
And I would straight up be so dedicated. I'm like, I am gonna go 2-10 the first season, because that's what it takes to build the program. And then you get freaking Madden, Dynasty crap. It's the same thing they've repackaged for 12 years.
I just want to point out that I know how much Barker loves this game, because when we were neighbors, like I would just walk into his room and I'd be like, "Well, what'd you do last night?" And like, man, he's like, "I lost to Texas, on a stupid play. I threw a pick." And I'm like, "What the heck are you talking about?" And he'd be like, "Yeah, I'm Wyoming right now," and da 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 da. And I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, okay, which is like funny, because one of the first things I did was I sent Barker after Tom Brady won his 7th Super Bowl or whatever it's at. And I sent him a meme. It's like, Tom Brady's at that point in NCAA where you just start over again as Wyoming. And you have to just start from scratch again.
People still make rosters for NCAA 14. Like you can go online this fall and people will upload this fall's rosters. That's how much people love this game. Yep. And you were a true boss if you could run Army or Georgia Tech's playbook and run the triple option. Shout out to Coach Wallace. Whoop, whoop.
Yep. That's awesome.
But, man, that was a football game.
Yeah.
That was a football game.
If Barker had to rank his video games, anyone he mentions, NCAA is going to be his one. He played that game religiously. They
could be bringing back NCAA college football in like 2 years. But a bunch of people are saying they're not going to, like, Notre Dame's too good for it because they got all that money.
Yep.
Freaking Notre
Dame. There's a bunch of schools that said they won't let the likeness be used, which is kind of a bummer.
Way to Barry Bonds that.
Yeah, seriously. All right. So we're going in order. So I have a game that transcends my time between like Halo, but I played it. I mean, even today I'd still play it. I mean, we all still kind of play it at some point. But I was a huge Pokemon addict. Like I played Pokemon religiously. My Pokemon Blue is like worn. It's like purple. Like the sticker's almost like coming off. My Pokemon Red, like my parents bought me both. And like I can remember this to the day, right? I was a kid. I think it came out in 98. So I was 8 years old. I'd come home from elementary school. I opened the mailbox and there was a VHS. Now, for those of you who don't know, VHSs are what came before Blu-ray and DVD. They had film in them that had to be rewound. Anyway, Pokemon was getting launched in America and Toys R Us had sent this VHS of what Pokemon was all about. And I must have watched that thing at least 100 times because I thought it was the coolest concept. And so when it came out on the video game, and I played the video game. I played the Game Boy game just religiously. Like I would sit in the back on like our family road trips, and I would just play because it was a game that was constantly evolving, like constantly going. No pun intended, evolving right there. For those of you who play Pokemon. And I got to tell you though, the reason I'm not transcending this more is it's blue and red for me. Blue, red, and I'll give you a yellow with Pikachu and stuff like that. But once you kind of go beyond the 150, you lose me a little bit. But again, you had Pokemon Stadium that came out for Nintendo 64. And you got to put that, and you could put your game in your controller and play with your Pokemon on the big screen, where they were 3D, not 2D. Then you had Pokemon Snap, take pictures of Pikachu. I never owned this game, but you had Hey You Pikachu, where you attached a microphone and you could yell at Pikachu. You had, Pokemon Gold, Silver. I mean, I don't even know what they're on. Diamond, Ruby, Emerald. I don't know. There's a bunch of them now. But again, I'm the original 150. I'm an OG. I collected the cards and everything like that. Like Pokemon was a huge deal to me. One of my all-time favorite games, and still will be. Like, I mean, we have Pokemon Go on our phones now that we can do and stuff like that. But obviously, Pokemon Go includes like all 7,329,464 Pokemon, even though that's not really the number. But yeah, I mean, the Pokemon series was huge for me, and I don't. It was just something that was so cool. But it blows my mind as I think about it as like an adult, right? Like I'm 31 years old, and this mom let a 10-year-old kid walk out of her home to travel the world with an electric mouse. Like, what? It's
legit mouse.
I mean, it is. Pikachu's baller. Like, we know that. But, I mean, what kind of parenting is that? How old is your daughter right now?
7.
Would you let her leave in 3 years to travel the world with a turtle, a lizard with a flame for a tail, I don't even know, an animal with a bulb on its back, or an electric mouse?
Some days, maybe.
Great parenting. I love
Some days, maybe. You're just like, you know what? You need to go take a walk.
Yeah.
Maybe they was just a misunderstanding of what the boundaries were.
True. But yeah, Pokemon was my next one, and that was Game Boy game or Nintendo 64. They, like I said, they had it for everything. So
my daughters have a Pokemon game for the Switch. So
there you go.
My first, well, technically I bought that game, but like I would say Pokemon Go was probably the first big Pokemon property that I played fairly regularly. My brothers had the other ones and I would dabble, but I was never.
What's crazy about it is when you talk about, I think it's like the top 5 video game franchises, Nintendo owns 2 of them, and it's Pokemon and Mario, I think, are the top 2, because there's so many Mario games, like just different ones. So yeah, it's not. All right, Barker.
He's like one of the OGs. My crown jewel, top of my video game Parthenon.
Ooh,
Yeah, is none other than the game I was currently playing today, Skyrim.
Oh.
So Skyrim originally was released for the 360. It's a decade old. It was released in 2011. I bought it for the 360. I own it now for the One. I was contemplating buying it for the Switch because then it's mobile. We bought an Oculus and I downloaded Skyrim VR for my computer and then found out that it can run VR, but it can't run the Oculus app because Oculus wants higher graphics. So I have to spend more money on a computer so I can be in 3D and live in the world of Skyrim.
There you
But
go.
like, I guess I'm not super OG. So like Skyrim is part of the Elder Scrolls series. Skyrim is game 5. I've played since game 3, which was Morrowind on the 360. Then that was released in 02, and then there was Oblivion in 06. It's essentially like D&D, the video game. Like you get to create your character. There's 10 different races, 4 human races, 3 elf races, and you can be an orc, an Argonian, which is like a lizard man, or a Khajiit, which is like a cat man. And you can give him a do, so a cat man do. But anyway, and then in the older games, you would pick like a play style. Like, do you want to be a warrior? Do you want to be a barbarian? Do you want to be a rogue? Kind of a very D&D class system. Where in Skyrim, they just said, we're going to just, whatever skills you use, that's where you gain experience points. So you could be like a 2-handed weapon wielding destruction mage who wore heavy armor. You know what I mean? So you can be a magic user and wear armor, and like which kind of breaks the norm in these games. But anyway, just a big open world RPG where you can go through and do the main quest and then go do a whole bunch of other stuff. Or you can start the game, do like the first 2 steps of the main quest, and then essentially take, I don't know, like 3 years and do everything else except for the main quest. It's kind of, it's up to you. You can do what you want. You can be a jerk. You can be good. You can be evil, right? You can do nice things. You can do terrible things. Yeah, there's been DLCs for it, and now there's a huge modding community. So people go in and like add in, like, you have to play vanilla Skyrim to unlock the achievements. And this is the only game that I may at some point get every achievement for. I'm not an achievement guy, but I just have played so much Skyrim that I'm going to get there. And that's only on the One. It doesn't count. It doesn't port any of my stuff that I did when I was on the 360.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's people make mods. They turn the dragons into Thomas the Train Engine, some of them. They add weapons from like Game of Thrones. They make it so you can make more clothing options, make more armor options. And they've opened it up so that you can bring those onto the console. It makes it a little bit more unstable, and sometimes it'll crash, but it's just really cool that, you know, I'm playing now with mods, and it took me like an hour and a half. Somebody listed their mod load, and like I went through, and it took hours to load them up and like play them, because you have to put them in the right load order, or else it screws everything up. And I'm not that smart to figure out how to do all that.
Yeah.
And so I'm playing like modded Skyrim, and again, like people said, like it feels like a different game because you can tweak it in ways that it plays different, makes it more difficult, instead of the regular like, here's your weapon crosshairs, like here's a little dot. And so normally when you're running around, like, well, you can't see that little dot, so you have to actually like put the arrow where you think it's going to go, and you know what I mean. So it makes it a little bit more immersive, a little bit more challenging that way. So it's just, who doesn't want to go around and kill dragons?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, man. It's one of my all-time favorite games, and like the kids are getting, you know, Emma the other day I was playing, and she goes, "You shot that person like 4 times. Why aren't they dead yet?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's a great idea. That's a great question."
Yeah.
It's a great question because they should be, but they're not. And then I'm getting smacked in the face. But it's just great because you can change whatever play style you want to be. I generally end up being a sneak thief that sits in the corner and shoots people with arrows and then, you know, runs away. It's a legitimate strategy. You can't just be a tank and go up and get your face punched by every character in the game. So
yeah.
Skyrim.
speaking of building off that, that's going to build off and this is where I'm kind of cheat like a little bit. I know I cheated with Pokemon because I included the whole series. I'm going to include the whole series with Call of Duty. So I started playing Call of Duty when I think I played it once on my GameCube. Somebody had it, and it was a good game. But it really was my original Xbox when I got Call of Duty Big Red 1, and it followed the First Division through World War II. And it was like one of my all-time favorite games. Loved every minute of it. And it's built from there. Like the franchise is obviously on Warzone. They've released Call of Duty Black Ops. Cold War now, I think, is the most recent one. Yeah. And so they obviously have Call of Duty Warzone, which a lot of the students play and everything like that. But man, Call of Duty, when we were in college, Call of Duty would come out with a new game every November around Veterans Day. And we knew it was coming. We'd go to Fred Meyer in Ellensburg at midnight. We'd grab our copy, go back to the dorm, go back to the house, whatever it was, and we'd just sit down and we'd beat the game, right? And we'd just sit there and play through the whole campaign. If we skip class, don't skip class. But if we skip class, like whatever, it was whatever. We were playing Call of Duty. We were finishing it. And we would finish Call of Duty. And it was so much fun. And sometimes it would come out on Veterans Day, which was the best because then you wouldn't skip class because it was Veterans Day. Thank you for our veterans for all your service. And I played Call of Duty to celebrate that for myself. But I remember in college, it was just awesome. I remember going into both my dorm rooms where my roommate would go and buy it with me, and we would sit there and play it until, we were done with it, which was usually like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning after getting it at midnight. And I remember just having a blast with it. And now I love playing Call of Duty Warzone. I play with one of my teacher buddies, Mr. Frost. Frost, shout out to you. And I love it, but it's the same thing that Parker just said with Skyrim. It's like I just shot that dude 4 times. Why didn't he die? I don't know. It's a great question. So, or you come around the corner and you die, and you're like, what the heck happened? Oh, that's a new type of gun. That's cool. Like sarcastically, because obviously they got lucky. But anyway, I would say Call of Duty is probably one of my all-time franchises that I would play, and I would play religiously. I think I own all but the Black Ops series. I don't think I have either of the Black Ops, but I bought all the other ones. Oh, I didn't buy the futuristic ones. Anything that was futuristic, I didn't really buy. I bought stuff that was like in the present day or in World War II and stuff like that. So, but yeah, those were my all-time. And what I love about this topic and that we picked it and that you picked it is the fact that video games have always like just brought people together. And it's always been just something fun. Like, yeah, you yell at people online and yeah, things don't go your way a lot of the time. But I love playing video games, and it's just something I don't do it as much anymore. But it's just whenever I go back to it, it's always so much fun. So what are you laughing at? What I do?
It's just one of those things where I think about like everything right now is everything's online and connected in that way, and like so much of like I would rather play games with people in my house. Yeah, because being that I'm older now, I actually did earlier this year. Some guys from high school, some of my high school buddies were like, "Hey, we all play Star Wars Squadrons. And do you want to jump on?" And like for like a month, we sat there and like would jump on like once a week and play Squadrons together. And it was like, wow, that's kind of cool, But it was like, I'm not a huge online player just because like I'm a dad. And so like if somebody tosses their cookies upstairs, I'm going to be able to put it down and go. So like, yeah, you know what I mean? So it's just like, that's why I love, Skyrim. And like, that was the downside with NCAA football. They hadn't invented the mid-game pause and save that Madden has, one redeeming quality of Madden. You had to commit. And I remember being in arguments with my now wife, going, no, I've got to finish this game. I can't just go to bed right now. Yeah. I'm up by 10 points over Penn State, and it's going good. Yeah. It's going good. I can't stop, right? Which might be the first sign of a problem. But whatever. What do they know?
Did you go to bed that night?
After I beat Penn State.
Yeah, so you're good. You got what you need to do, and you went to bed.
And then I recruited for the next week, and to put it, how much I love that game. To put it in perspective, when I moved to Quincy, I may or may not have made every team in Quincy's league so that you could add them. So when you played your road to the Heisman, you could upload your own high schools.
Yeah.
And the whole, like, Cascade Leavenworth, Kashmir, Omak, Chelan, Ephrata, based on the images that were online at the time. I did my best. So, you know what I mean? Like, I was dedicated. That was a game.
Madden down the second one.
Huh?
Hopefully if they come out with a new one, they don't let you down.
If they literally just took NCAA 14, added RPOs,
graphics
and
updated,
released it,
updated graphics,
I'd be happy.
They're gonna update the graphics because I think that like the stuff they made the original games on, they're gonna update them. But I mean, even then, that's
all they need to do: update graphics, add RPOs,
mid-game pause and save.
Mid-game pause. Yeah. Frick, you can now play as the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers.
Yep.
Who doesn't want to play as the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers?
Let me tell you, that's where I'm starting. I'm gonna be positive. When that game gets released, I can tell you that I want to match. I know you don't want to play online, but if they make the mid-game pause and save, I want to play you and like have a season of it where we play each other and kind of go through it. How you doing? Well, I'm getting ready for this bowl game. My recruiting class is good though next year.
Got a 3-star punter, my top recruit.
Hell yeah,
doing well.
I love it. That
was the way you would cheat too, by the way. You'd make a guy a really kick-ass athlete, and then you make him like a punter. Yeah. And then you could just recruit him, and then you could change his. That was the way you could game the game. I didn't do that very much, but I would make these like super great prospects, and then they get recruited, and they'd end up playing at freaking like USC. So I'd have to go play like my stud that I made, pummeling me, and I'm like, yeah, shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, shouldn't have done that.
Like when Jonathan Stewart went to Oregon instead of Wazoo.
Yeah, brutal.
It's all right. I understand. He wanted to see his mom more, and it was easier to drive. I get it. No hard feelings, Jay Stu.
And then he went to Carolina.
Had a good career. He's from Timberline High School.
Yep.
So.
Love it. Anything else to add, Bark, on this one? I love this one, so.
Everybody, you know what I mean? Like, everybody has their gaming, their games that they like to play. Like, some people like fighting games. Like, that's not really my thing. You know what I mean? And, like, I've kind of sat here and going, like, I don't really buy that many games. And it's like, I can't just sit there. I don't know. Like, it just seems like a big investment. I like to go out and spend $60 and go, I don't know if I like it or not.
Yeah.
Hollywood Video, where are you?
Yeah, seriously, Blockbuster. Go watch that last documentary on Netflix.
Gamefly.com.
Yeah, that's a new one.
Yeah. Sorry, no paid promotions on this channel.
Yeah, no. We're just shouting.
All for the love of the game. Kevin Costner, great baseball movie.
Yeah, but I mean, if you really want to, Bend, Oregon, there's still a Blockbuster video there. You can go rent. Yeah, so we're not sure if we're going to film every week or every other week or whatever's going to happen. We're just when we think of ideas. But one of the things, too, and we'll put this on our Instagram page, and I know that Barker and I will put it on our own Instagram pages, too. Give us a shout-out of your favorite game. Like, what's a game that you remember or that you love playing, and let us know. Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be good.
No, absolutely not. Barker and I have games that have terrible graphics. I can make an argument for Duck Hunt. That was one of my favorite games growing up, too. The old NES with the little pistol, and the dog would laugh at you when you missed ducks. I hate that dog. So, yeah. Wow. So, I don't have anything else. You got anything else? All right. Well, until next time, I'm the Turn.
I'm the Bark.
And we're going to be here a long time. Have a good night, everybody.
Be safe.
And be well.